Today we are talking about,
Medical mayhem.
yes. What does that mean? What does that mean, Chris?
Well, and you're the only person who said to me this, and it makes lots of sense, and but you're the only one who really put it into words. Is that you need to be an advocate for your loved ones when they're going through medical things.
Issues and if they're in the hospital.
Yeah.
Because now we've got, last year my dad had a brain bleed, and my sister was the only one that was really hanging there every day.
And you have to.
You have to be there every day to advocate. My brothers were busy, so I told her, I said, I'll come up for a month, and I did. I went up and sat with him every day for a month. She would come in the morning, I would come in the afternoon, or whatever we did, just to work things out, because she had put so much effort into it, and early on when things were not looking good. And it continued to go downhill a little bit, but I, being a Christian, I went up with the aspect that it's all going to work out just fine. And so don't talk to me about not fine, it's going to be fine. And it is actually doing very, very well. But even if you can just sit there, the medical staff, first of all, they are so thin, they are run so ragged, they can't get to everybody as much as they'd like to. And it helps if family is there. I remember them coming in when we were with Dad. It was like, oh, this is the guy with all the family. So the first problem is you are going to be watching everything that they do. You probably will ask them, what are you doing? And what is that for? And why do they need that?
What was that one that you told me about, that story about?
Yes.
Yeah.
My girlfriend went into the hospital for surgery, and her mom was with her all the time. And a young nurse came in and went to her IV with a syringe. And her mom said, well, what is that? And she, well, this is her insulin. She said, she doesn't take insulin.
She's not diabetic.
She wasn't diabetic. And they fought until an older nurse came to the doorway and asked the younger one, what are you doing here? And she said, well, I'm giving her insulin. She goes, this is your wrong room. It's next door. So you've got to have somebody there when you are incapacitated, can't take care of business, can't handle anything on your own. You really need somebody to stand up for you and be there. And like I said, even if you're just there, you're watching everything that they do. And you're watching your loved ones, so they don't have to necessarily run in there all the time looking at them.
And like her husband Jeff said, it's called a practice for a reason, because they are human. They make mistakes.
They do.
And do
They
you
really
want to make a mistake that you're not there to stop them from making?
Right, right, yeah. So you want to be mindful of that. And in our case, and I know in your case too, when your mom is in the hospital right now, I swear the shift changes are every 5 minutes, I'm convinced. There are so many different bodies that keep coming into that room and coming into that room and coming into that room, and they don't know the history of the person. So you are there to advocate their history. I mean, Dad was 85 years old. He had never used a walker, he drove his own car, went to the bathroom by himself, fed himself. Everything was perfectly normal.
My mom's the same way.
Yes, exactly the same. And they call it a baseline. What is their baseline? Well, they were not using a cane. They were not having people drive them. They were not having people help them to the bathroom. They're pretty appalled at 85. Both of them are 85 that's even possible.
Yeah, one nurse was like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's what they say about Dad too. Are you kidding me? He slipped and fell on the ice up there in northern Minnesota on Easter morning, going to church, and hit his head. And at the time, they didn't see anything that would be a problem, but it was a couple months later that it became a problem. It had been bleeding, but very, very, very slowly, and it actually caused some damage in that direction. But he was definitely himself. He was still there. He was still going strong. The personality was very much there. He remembered everything. Got a little confused through a period of time, but that's to be. He had 2 brain surgeries within 2 days, so. Yay. Yeah.
With my mom, she slipped on March 10th, I think it was, and fell in the kitchen. And she, well, I'm not going to go into all the dirty details, but basically, she got better in the hospital, went to rehab. Well, one of my first, and I think I mentioned this on a prior video, that one of my first, I guess, mistakes is not knowing who the heck are these people, because this woman came into the room and said, okay, here's a list of rehab centers that she can go to based on her insurance. I don't know who that woman was. I don't know how to contact her, and so we picked one and we took her there. And then once there, they bully you and they say, well, if you want to leave against medical advice, then your insurance probably isn't going to pay for it. You'll have to pay for the full amount. And so they bully you into staying. You don't know who to call to find a different place. You don't know if you can do that. You just don't know. So there's these things that you have to, and you're already stressed out because your loved one is in this position. Mm-hmm. So you have to keep in mind, you have to find out, and it annoys me that the hospitals don't do that automatically and say, okay, here's my number if you need to call me. Why won't they do that? Another thing that they've been doing lately that has been really driving me up the wall is every time they call me, my stomach gets upset because I don't know what they're calling about now, because they do this emotional roller coaster with you, because they basically, and I know that there are medical professionals who do care, but let's be honest, it is a profession, it is a corporation. They want money. Mm-hmm. So the longer your loved one is in that bed, the less chance they have to get somebody else in that bed and get their money. Mm-hmm. So they want you to make decisions like this, this. And so one time, actually, they called me this on a Saturday just to ask me if I knew what her rights were under Medicare, and they can give me a copy of that, And I see their phone number come up on my phone, and I'm like, what happened? Is she dying? What's going on? Why are they calling me on a Saturday? Yeah. Dude, I need that stress? No. So if any medical people are watching this, I would say, hey, think before you call somebody.
Yeah, rethink it a little bit. Yeah, just kind of put something together. My favorite is the VA calling me at 6 in the morning. I finally had it put on his account that you don't call till after 8.
Thank goodness.
I don't know if it's going to work or not, but yeah, it's and they're not upsetting me so much as I can't think straight at 6 in the morning. I'm sorry, I just can't. My brain is not completely functional at that point. And now you're asking me to make decisions and to figure things out, and appointments and whatever. So yeah, from that medical profession standpoint, they don't think about people. They really don't. My sister was running around going age discrimination, which
yes,
I honestly thought that was only in northern Minnesota, but now with your mother, I see that it's here too as well. Northern Minnesota, even with my grandparents, was notorious for give them pills, send them home, let them die because they're older.
And that's kind of the attitude they all have.
Yeah.
When my
it's
mom,
insurance, because insurance doesn't want to pay for them anymore. They're just going to die anyway. So get a grip.
Well, when my mom was in the rehab facility, they did not take good care of her. They would leave her for hours at a time. She had this sore on her back from laying on the floor for 5 days. It got worse in rehab. I mean, it went from being like a stage 1 or stage 2 sore to stage 4, which is the worst. And I really think that the reason she's in the hospital now is because of that stupid rehab place.
Yeah, and then you got sick from being at the rehab place too.
Yeah, I got sick twice from there. I got strep throat.
Yeah.
My mom got a streptococcal something or other, and she also got sepsis from there. Mm-hmm. And it just makes me so darn mad. I can't even express it.
Yeah,
I'm so mad.
It is. It's really difficult, and you have to, like I was telling her, you have to go there and sit there and ask questions. She goes, "What am I going to ask them?" Well, when they walk into the room, you're looking at them doing something, and you say, "What is that? And what are you giving them? And what does it do? And why would they have that?" And it's, you can be taking notes and keeping track. And then when the doctor comes back, and make sure that if you do go there, that you're there when the doctor is going to be coming in, so you can ask them, because that's another fun one that she's been having fun with, is one doctor will say one thing and a nurse will say another, and this advocate will say something else, and this one. And it's like, if you guys could kind of agree with each other, would be really helpful. But people are, again, they're human, they make mistakes, and you have to be there to sort that for the person who's in the hospital.
Yeah, especially if they can't stand up for themselves, because my mom, the sepsis made it so she can't really communicate that well. She hears everything that's going on, and I've asked her yes or no questions. I'm like, nod if this is what you want, and she'll nod. So she's there.
Yeah.
And they keep telling me, oh, her confusion, blah, blah. And I'm like, she's not confused. She just can't get it out yet because of the sepsis and stuff.
Yeah, we did learn that with Dad, too. He had the 2 brain surgeries, and we did learn that he became inappropriate because he was having trouble communicating. It wasn't coming out correctly. And we were all going, what is he doing? My other favorite was when his eyes didn't focus. And he would look off to the side, and people would say, who's that? And who's that? Oh, that's Crystal. And he's looking over here, and I'm sitting over here. And I'm like, okay, but that went away as well. So they, coming from a Christian standpoint of, healing is something that God wants us all to have. Jesus died on the cross for all our diseases, not just some, all of them. And so it is a promise of God that you would be in good health. So there's no question about, well, is this what God wants? No, it's not. He wants them to be in good health. The doctors were telling us with my dad when he was having trouble feeding himself, and it was a mess, and it was everywhere, and they said, well, this may be the, as good as it's going to get. And I said, no, that's not the answer. No. And now he's doing remarkably well. He's home and using a walker and using it quite a lot, I guess. He didn't at first, but now he does. For every day they're in bed, it's like 2 to 3 weeks to recover from that, because he was always very bent over, and I had no idea that came from being in bed. But that's what it was from.
Yeah, and because I forget what it's called, but edema.
Yeah.
Their limbs swell up.
Yep.
Because they're laying there, they're not moving. And
Right,
so
right.
There's that. And one thing that irritates me too is that these people, my mom has been in the ICU for 3 weeks now, and they're all, well, she doesn't seem to be improving. It's like, okay, the woman is 85 years old. She's not going to jump up and start running around after 3 weeks. It takes time for the body to heal, and the older you are, the longer it takes. Mm-hmm. So my brother and I are both putting our foot down. You will continue to treat her.
Yeah.
And,
Yep, and take care of her. Because it does come back. I'm here to tell you, Dad really did. I mean, he was definitely in there. He did have some delirium at one point, which I guess is very common early on with surgeries and things like that. I understand that he called my brother. He said he didn't know who my brother was, and that upset my brother. But it's not him. It's at the moment the brain just was not triggering. Yeah, and I know your mom doesn't have any brain issues, but again, things just kind of stop in that period, and now the fluids are moving again and rushing again, and the brain goes, what, wait a minute, hold on, what's going on here? I got to go heal what? I've got to take care of what part of the body? And you want me to tell you what? It gets a little confusing because they're older. It just does, but it doesn't mean it's a death sentence.
And I don't think I did tell you this, but she did end up having a small stroke in the back of her.
Oh yeah, yes.
So she does have a little brain issue, but they said, and this is another thing, they said after they first found it, they said, oh yeah, but it was a small stroke, so it shouldn't be affecting her speech or whatever. And then yesterday, I think it was, the doctor says, well, they're like trying to list this laundry list of all the things that's happened to her, and he says, and she's had this stroke, which is a very serious thing. And I'm thinking, when did it become serious? Because it wasn't serious before.
Yeah.
But now, because they're wanting us to try and
to get out,
to put her in hospice, because they're assuming she's going to die, and we're just like, no.
They did that with Dad too. 2 weeks after he was in there, the hospice person takes us out and tells us, okay, we must prepare for this. And my brother was having a fit. He was having none of it. He said, what is this? And I said, you can tell them no. You can tell them no. You're not considering that right now. You're still waiting for things to improve and to move forward. And it's going to take some time.
And they did tell us, oh, it'll be totally your decision. And so it's like, well, good, because it ain't happening yet.
Yeah, so go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess too, we we know the people, and so we know when we're. I would hope we would know. I take that back, because I did have some siblings having a fit about the fact that he wasn't exactly thus and such and this way and whatever, and I thought no, I'm not going to accept that because God didn't say that, and. Now, granted, I think even your dad, when he had his stroke, and you thought things were looking up, and I don't know, because I think, am I guessing that your dad was a little proud?
Oh, yeah. Well, he is a Leo, and Leo's...
Yeah, and the idea that he would have to go and rehab, learning to speak, learning to walk.
And he talked a lot.
Yeah.
So that was really hard.
It was very hard. And sometimes they do make that choice that they would prefer
Not to.
not to do it. I don't know if we even asked Dad if he wanted to, what he wanted to do. I don't know that he would have known at the time.
Now, yesterday I did ask my mom, I said, do you want to come home with me? And she didn't answer. She didn't nod or shake her head. She was just kind of looking at me. So I think, maybe she's thinking about it. But I said, but see, here's the thing, your nephew, or my nephew, your grandson wants to write a book with you, and you have these projects that you wanted to finish. And then she started to look a little agitated. I said, don't stress out about it. I'm just telling you, these are things to come back for.
Yes.
Come back and
Yeah.
do these things
Yeah.
with me,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And like I tell a lot of my friends with their older parents, well, guys, the people, their friends are dying around them, their siblings are dying, their relatives are gone. I mean, when my grandmother, one of my grandmothers died at 91, there was hardly anybody at the funeral. The immediate relatives, and I think she had three sons left at the time, and it was very small, and she just didn't. And I saw pictures of her at the nursing home with all of the great-grandchildren taking their children to her and putting the baby in her arms, and they're taking a picture, and she just looked blank. It just isn't where she wanted to be. And she said, God doesn't love me, he's not taking me. She was waiting and waiting and waiting. And so it's hard to, my other grandmother, when she died at 89, quite some time before that, her sister died very unexpectedly. And she told me, she said, I don't have anybody to talk to. I talk to her every day. And now she's gone. And what am I going to do? And I said, Grandma, I said, when you're ready to go, don't worry about everybody. You just go. You just do whatever you want to do. And she was dying. She was gray. Her skin was gray. She couldn't talk. She was crying. She was in so much pain. They gave her potassium, and the next day she was sitting upright in the bed with her glasses on and held her first, or only one that she ever held, her great grandchild. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So, who knew potassium was the thing? I don't know. I wondered about that with Dad. I was like, maybe we should give him some potassium, see what happens, see if that brings them back. There's things that you might think of that they aren't thinking of because they don't have time to think of it. They go according to their plan at the hospital, and sometimes it's not necessarily the best plan. But like I said, be there when the doctors come in so that you can kind of iterate to them too.
Well, and that was another thing too. They put her on, they intubated her, put the tube down her throat. And one day they're telling us, well, she has a lot of fluid in her lung that we're sucking out through the tube and stuff. And so, you got to make decisions, blah, blah. And my brother and I were like, well, why don't we leave the tube in for a few more days, see how she does, the fluids and all that. And they were all nodding, oh, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. Yeah, we'll do that. The very next day they called me and said, we're taking the tube out today. And now you got to decide if she needs it again, she'll be on it for the rest of her life. So you have to make that decision right now.
Yep.
And I was like, I can't make that decision right now. know, I have to talk to my brother. Well, can you conference them in and all this stuff? And so, we both went down to the hospital and to her room, and the nurse said, oh, yeah, your mom's been breathing on her own all morning. The tube's still in there, but the machine hasn't been on. She's been breathing on her own, and there wasn't a lot of fluid in there when we last suctioned it out. And so we were like, well, that would have been nice to have known that.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he called, he
Yeah.
made it sound like we're going to take the tube out and she's going to die.
Yeah, that's,
So, I just...
Not everybody has the best bedside manner.
No.
Let's put it that way. And a
Yes.
lot of the surgeons, a lot of the specialists, I don't even know if the doctors really come close. They just don't get it. If you have a friend who's a nurse, or somebody who's a nurse assistant, or somebody in the know about these things, try to have that in your back pocket too, because you can ask them and they can give you ideas of what they've seen before, their experiences. Obviously, they're not doctors. They're not trying to be doctors, but very often, I know we have a friend who is a nurse's assistant, and the intubation situation, as far as he's concerned, never should have happened. They
Yeah,
should
because
not
the
have been doing
first
it.
time they put it in was
Diagnosed.
just so they could do an MRI and a spinal tap to find out if she had meningitis. And he said that they didn't
No.
need to do that unless she was fighting them.
Yeah. If she's not fighting, he said, I don't see a purpose for that. I don't see how that works.
And that's why when they told me, yeah, well, she's been intubated twice now, so blah, blah, I said to myself, I was like, as far as I'm concerned, it's only been once because she never should have,
Had it the first time.
Yeah.
The other thing is too, now they said once they take it out, if they put it in again, it's going to have to go
A
here.
tracheotomy.
And it's going to have
For
to be
life.
permanent. Yeah. And I had never heard that before. Now, I haven't, we have a friend who was intubated during COVID, and they basically told her, make sure your will is up to date. Make
Yeah,
sure
well, that's how they killed people during
Yeah,
COVID.
that's exactly
And
it.
that's why I didn't want her intubated at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. So that's an issue. It's something
Oh.
to be considered.
But along those lines, so she is on oxygen now, with the little thingies up the nose.
Yeah.
And so they were saying, that's one of the things they said yesterday, well, the amount of oxygen that she's on and blah, blah, trying to make it sound like it's the worst and I should put her in hospice. So this other doctor came in, the ICU unit doctor came in, and he says, I asked him, so, this
She getting too
oxygen,
much? Yeah.
whatever. He says, oh, just because that's the amount that they're giving her doesn't mean she's using all of that, because she breathed through her mouth, she's laying there like that and breathing through her mouth. He said it's the mixture of the two that gets her blood oxygen level up past 90. So it's, she's not using all of that oxygen.
Yeah.
So, it's like you've got
different
Dr.
stories,
Doom
yeah.
and Gloom, and you've got Dr. It's more, it's not that bad.
Yeah, well, then you got Jeff's favorite is you get 10 doctors in a room and you ask them one question, you get 10 answers.
Yeah.
And that's really, really frustrating. And all I know is cardiologists think they're God. That's all I know.
Oh, I think
that's,
a lot of them do.
Yeah,
My-
that's the only one I've run into.
My old gynecologist used to think he was God.
Oh,
so-
wow, I haven't had one of those. Okay.
Yeah, because I had ovarian cysts, and I was asking him before the surgery, because at the time I was kind of, I didn't want kids, but I didn't want the option taken away.
Yeah.
So I was like, if you can save the ovaries, I'd appreciate it. He said, oh, okay. So after surgery, he comes in and he says, I saved your ovaries for you.
Oh.
It's like, dun da da da.
Yeah, so let's get you a gold, bronze medal
Yeah.
or whatever it is. Yeah,
Thanks.
Yeah. So, just some of the things that we've experienced and wanted to share with you. Go there, stay there, be there. I don't think you have to stay overnight necessarily, but you do want to go in and see what happens at night as well as during the day, and make sure that somebody's there to advocate for them.
And I don't know if it's the case everywhere, but at the hospital my mom is at, in the ICU unit, you have to be out between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and also between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to stay.
Yeah. So,
Overnight.
yeah, I didn't do any ICU stuff, amazingly. I think he must have been in ICU before I got there, yeah, because he was in a room. But, but again, be there, ask the questions, and if you don't know what to ask, just ask, what are you doing?
And
What
hold
is
them
that?
accountable.
Yeah.
You know? And don't believe everything they tell you.
No,
Because they had me on such an emotional roller coaster. Finally on Sunday, my the online pastor that I watch, Pastor Bob Joyce, had a sermon on receiving peace, and I really needed that, and it really has helped me.
Yeah.
And so I'm I'm leaving it all in the Lord's hands, and I'm just going to try and take everything they say with a grain of salt and
Yeah.
just not freak
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah. Oh, that was a suggestion of one of my gals at church who said, because I was telling her how we were at the VA and his primary care, and he said, well, he's, according to the mathematical computations of his blood work, he's in the 25 percentile to have a stroke. And they wanted to put him on a statin, which statin, bad, very
Yeah.
bad. You don't want that. And I said, oh, okay. And he's looking at me like, okay. And I said, well, no, we're not going on a statin. 25%, I can live with that. And he's looking at me. And so I looked at Jeff. I said, can you live with that? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine.
the 25% is hardly anything.
I know. If we talk
mean, if it was like-
75%,
exactly,
yeah,
yeah.
give me
Or
a call.
90%, yeah.
Yeah, or let me know. And then the next year was 24% based on the calculation.
So it's going down.
That's what I said. I said, oh, it's going down. And he looked at me like I had lost my mind. But my girlfriend
again-
at church said, you say to them, I heard you. I heard what you said.
Yeah, not agreeing with them.
Yeah.
Just,
I heard what you said. And that's it. You go on your way.
But like she was saying several minutes ago, that, it's all about, give them a pill and send them home.
Yeah.
And no.
Yeah, because the calculations for, what is it? There's this guy right now on YouTube that used to be one of the guys who calculated people's death based on what they eat, how they live, their lifestyle, where they were born, whatever it is. He has all these calculations, and he literally believes that he can tell you the day that, or at least the month, that you're going to die. That's how specific these things are.
Who would want to know that?
Yeah, I know, who would? And so the point is, though, God knows.
Yeah,
You
he's the
don't
only one
know.
that really knows.
You don't know. Yeah, I would like to, find out from him how many people, what the percentages are that actually do what he tells them they're going to do.
Well, besides which, if you have someone tell you you're going to die on X day,
Yes.
you are going to manifest that.
Yep,
if
you're going to believe it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you don't need to do that.
No, you don't need that, because God has a better plan.
He's the only one who knows exactly when you're
Yep,
going
he
to
has a better idea, and that's all there is. They used to have that. They had Coke has a better idea, so they made the logo God has a better idea. And he's always pulling stuff like that. Always throws you off. But he'll take care of it. It'll all
Yeah.
work out.
Yes. And that brings us to our usual saying.
Yes. Take care of yourself, because nobody else will.
And take care of your loved ones.
Yes, absolutely. Advocate for them. Bye now.